review can be, clamped down. You can trace information to the data transactions that have occurred in the past, and then the rightful taxes can be leveled. And so that, to me, is very crucial. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Doc, I'll come to you. I know you have at least looked at the data since the introduction of some technology-driven solutions to address revenue leakages. How much of a game changer would you say they've been so far?
All right, thank you, Michael, and good afternoon. Thank the organizers for the opportunity. I believe that the context has been properly laid out. The reality of the issue is that Ghana is a developing country. We have challenges with revenue mobilization. A number of factors account for that, but essentially, Ghana is predominantly informal in context. The informal sector is very difficult to tax, as my colleague panelist has indicated. And so you have a lot of people that are earning revenue but do not contribute. The other aspect is that we are a resource-rich nation, but we are unable to tax the resources that we generate really appropriately. And so in that context, it's exciting and interesting to see the innovation that is occurring in there. We know that persistently human interface, it's really the issue we deal with in terms of corruption. For tax agents to be negotiating how much obligation one has to pay with kickbacks and all. So when you remove the human interface, you increase the efficiency in the tax. And so if you ask me the gains that have been made, I am not sure I can lay claim to the fact that because X or Y intervention has occurred, this is exactly what you're seeing. But indeed, when you look at the trajectory of our tax revenue to GDP, you see that, for example, we did about 15.9%, which is quite encouraging. This year, 2025, government is proposing 17.3%. And so, I mean, within the environment and the turbulence of US tariffs and all that, we are watching the space. But I believe that the reality is that technology is here. We need to leverage it to improve tax efficiency in terms of the cost of collection and also how much we are able to generate out of every process that is rolled out, really.
All right, thank you. Doc, I understand you also have experience in the extractive industry, so maybe you can share with us how things work there. But then, really, there's this conversation about technology helping to bridge the gap, but technology is still powered by persons. So there are bound to be inefficiencies, don't you agree?
Actually, the last part of your question is where I wanted to start from. But before that, thank you very much, organizers, for giving us the opportunity, especially allowing me to travel from Kumasi, the Golden Kingdom, to come and join this. I'm coming to talk about gold, you know. So let's start from there. It's humans. Technology or no technology, it's humans. And before we came here, I was talking to somebody and I said, because Prof. Bwedi has already said what I wanted to say, and I believe my panelists will agree with me that Prof. Bwedi has stopped us from talking. Because everything he said is exactly what the situation is. We are hemorrhaging, we are seriously bleeding, and it's human. Now, we are a developing country, but the developed countries too are humans. And those countries that change from being developing to now developed countries or emerged countries, they were humans. There are two main things apart from what has already been mentioned, the informal economic kind of situation, but I will interrogate the informal thing a bit more. Two main things. Number one, what is our culture like? To appreciate this, because the majority of us here are students, take this scenario. We are in a classroom to write accounting or finance course, and then somebody got some confused about a topic and then asked, hey, question two. Then another person response. A third student raises up the hands, tells the invigilator, my friends are breaking the rule of the... Now, let me ask you, who will we attack? The one who reported, or the one who taught, or the one who sought for help? Agreed? Now, the second question, if we want this nation to develop, who should we praise?
The one who reported.
Because that's what Prof. Bedi is saying. Prof. Bedi is saying if we want our country to progress, then we should have the one who reported. Now, as you sit here, do you want the one who reported to be praised? And I'm a pastor. When such a thing happens, people come and put on a big cross and go and beg for them. And those of you who are chiefs, you finish painting your chow, put on some kente and maybe something, and go beg for them. This is cultural. To the extent that even your own parents, one time I asked my students, when Priscilla is appointed the Deputy Minister of Finance next year, she'll go to church and say, thank you, God, wearing white. The mother will go with her. The father will go. I don't know whether she's married or not, but the significant people around her will go with her. What are they going to church for? Do you understand my question? In other words, true or false? A friend of mine says, if it is seriously true, then it is true, no more true. It is true. Then it takes me to the second thing. One of the biggest problems we have in this country, and it cuts across all the extractives, is that our country has been captured by the elite. It's not, you see, what we just shared here is not new to the big people. And if the big people want to change this, they won't be attacking SML. They won't be asking, how long have you been around? Because if we are looking for a solution, and somebody is a stranger, he came 2 days ago, and he brought a solution, would we complain? The elite have captured the political economy of this country and most of West Africa. And I always tell people that if you want to understand where we are going, study from Nigeria, because they are 15 steps ahead of us. So if you look at them and want to know where we are going, just look at them. And if you don't like where they are going, let's change the trajectory. I don't know if I'm making sense. I'm just trying to bring the human part to the technical conversation that we've been having. Not because the technical conversation is not important, but you know, when problems happen to even individuals, not even nations, they don't categorize themselves academically into topics. Technological solution, this solution, that solution. They come as a whole. They come as a monster. They come as a hydra-headed kind of thing that is difficult to deal with.
Okay.
But I personally believe that if we start dealing with the elite, and to deal with the elite, maybe later I'll talk to detail.
Yeah.
Why are we here and the government people are not here? Why are we here and Catholic conference is not here? Because they influence how we behave. Why is it that the traditional authority of the House of Chiefs are not here? They are the people who determine how we behave, how we go to the courts, and all those things. Maybe.
Thank you so much. Very, very passionately said. I'm just wondering what your lecture class will be like, but very interesting submissions there. Clearly, the problem requires a holistic solution because now it goes beyond systemic to attitudinal to cultural. But then I'm sure there's always a starting point, and maybe technology is one way to start. Ms. Mensah, so share with us, please, what has been the challenges, I'm sure at least from the work we do at EY, with tax compliance and leveraging on technology to achieve that. How has it been, per your assessment?
Okay, So, with regards to tax compliance, one major challenge we have actually encountered, and the GRA has also experienced same, is the fact that most taxpayers are not willing to pay taxes. Okay, they would want to seize every opportunity to underreport revenue and then overprice costs. So then you realize the majority of the times when you have multinationals here in Ghana, they have a lot of related party transactions, and that typically leads to issues of transfer pricing. Okay, so we sometimes will call it transfer mispricing because that is where the values are altered. So then the aim of transfer pricing is to shift, revenue to countries where tax rates are lower, and then costs to countries where tax rates are higher. And the aim is to benefit the multinational group. So if, for instance, a mining company has revenue of, let's say, 36 million, and then is able to, bloat its costs such that the cost ends up being more than the revenue. You go in there and you realize that there's very little to tax. Though those revenues may be legitimate, they could be backed by invoices, they could be backed by agreements and all of that, but they may not be at arm's length. So we have the transfer pricing units of the GRA conducting, I think of recent times we've had vigorous tax audits being conducted in the transfer pricing area. And when that happens, you see a lot of revenue coming through in the form of corporate taxes because there are adjustments that are to be done. Typically, transfer pricing would want to compare. We have several forms. You need to apply the right principle and then know whether the taxes are being evaded or whatnot. I wouldn't usually say that tax planning is a bad thing. Tax planning is actually a good thing, but the main aim is that taxpayers are in the habit of evading taxes, are in the habit of avoiding taxes, and that is the main bane. Once we have people who are willing to, willing to pay taxes, willing to comply, then this problem should not be there. And again, the issue of transfer pricing, we can also link it to the fact that if we have a system we have that system, but then for it to be more robust, for the competent authority, which is here in Ghana, GRA, and those of related parties, that is countries of origin, they should work together coincisively to ensure that there's IT audits. The system should be able to pick up, transactions that are, fictitious and fraudulent instantly. And we have talked extensively about, ICOMs and all of you. We've talked about the ITAS. We've talked about metering systems. So if we have digital solutions working properly, we can be able to merge works that are being done by the competent authorities, GRA, and then other countries. So that is my submission.
Fantastic. The first time I heard about transfer pricing was in Mr. Tuare's class, and he's here. Hello, sir. Please put your hands together for another of my lecturers.
Thank you.
All right. So, Doc, I'll come back to you, Dr. Chumesi. So, clearly, we need to fix this issue of revenue compliance and tackling the issue of leakages. Really, in your opinion, where do you think we should start from? And if we are able to fix this challenge, how much of a difference would it make with our tax to GDP ratio? I've heard people like Dr. Eric here say that if we can increase our tax to GDP ratio above 20%, we may not need the IMF again. Where do you sit?
Right. Essentially, when you look at the projection for ECOWAS countries, really towards economic integration and all the issues with building resilience and avoid vulnerabilities in the countries, there's a target of 20% and above for tax revenue. And so indeed, it's important that we work at it. And so I'll give you a typical scenario. I think that, yes, we consistently indicate that digitalizing the whole process, removing the human interface is critical. A number of years ago, I think about 2018, a few colleagues of mine with the Growth Center conducted a study in the Medina municipality, and it was in relation to property tax collection. And so you know that property taxes are ceded to the local government, and they lack the capacity to collect, inefficiency in collection. People come to your door, collect the money, give you some fictitious receipts. You don't know where the money is ending. And so in that study, they try to give out collection agents handheld devices to track real time the revenues that are coming in. And believe you me, the amount of revenue they raked in, I think their performance was like 5 times what they had done. And this is just a small municipal area. So if something like this is rolled out all over the country, you see the potential for revenue. So we are really sitting on gold in a sense that not necessarily the real gold, which we have to generate enough from, but there are other revenues that need to be collected. So the informal sector is difficult to tax. You cannot track how much market men and women are making, but you know the cars they are driving, the homes they live in, they should pay something on it. And those are the other avenues. And I think that essentially tax education is critical. I mean, paying taxes is a civil responsibility of every citizen. Back in the day when there was the land poll tax, by the time you turn 18 or 21, you had to pay tax. So all of you had to pay something at the end of the year to government. Look at the way some of them are eyeing me. But it's a responsibility because you demand social services. You require street lights, the water, the electricity. You are not paying market prices for it. And where do the funds come from? But when it comes to the willingness to pay, it becomes more like a chicken and egg situation. If I am paying, I need to see that it is working. So when issues of leakages and corruption, non-performance of state-owned enterprises, wasting public resources, then you see that the apathy creeps in. But like my other panelists have said, the places we go to where systems are working, nobody is happy paying taxes, but there are penalties involved when you evade or even avoid the tax, really.
Thank you. I like that to get the people's buy-in, you must ensure that you're giving them value for money. So in as much as you're trying to rope the people in, government must also know that it must deliver on its mandate. Then people will be keen to pay. And I like the fact you made there about the property taxes. I was surprised at the quality of buildings I saw in Kwewu. And a lot of them may be living in rented apartments here and not pay property taxes, whilst they have mansions out there that are not paying taxes at all. So it's important that we also synchronize the system like you are saying. Doc, I'll come to you on your final submission. So we've spoken about expanding the tax net. We've spoken about addressing leakages. Now, where do we go from here?
So, okay. So let me add a bit to this, then I jump to where we should go from here. There was a question you asked about where do we start? When somebody is seriously sick, you don't look for all the long-term solutions. You don't say, hey, my friend, you are sick. This sickness, if you were gymming, so start gymming. The person is almost dying. You say gymming? I hope you get what I'm saying. So the way we are hemorrhaging, we don't start with the good things that are sustainable. Even though those good things that are sustainable should be our aim. But we start with what we are talking about now, technology. This one is straight to the point. I have a worry. I'm not a tax expert. In fact, of all the management things I know about, I think tax is the area I really don't know. But I'm asking myself, do we get more taxes because the amount of taxes are big or because more people are paying? That balancing act, can the academics work with government? Unfortunately, in this country, policymakers don't like academics. They don't like giving us their data. They don't like us coming into their, SML is not a normal public sector people. I was doing some work with Maslow some time ago, and if I tell you what I went through for 5 full years, looking for just data that is supposed to be available, it wasn't easy. So I think right from this, and I'm mentioning 2 things we haven't mentioned already. Can we use drones to identify this property you're talking about? It's been done in other countries. India does it. Okay. Yes, they use drones. So the drones will help them. They don't need to come to you. You'll be there and they send you the message that you need to pay X or Y. Use the system to pay it. And that system will go straight to government. And then blockchain technology, I mean, blockchain is just a kind of technology that can back any of these, including what SML is doing, such that nobody can easily, erase anything or change anything. What is behind Bitcoin? Nobody really even knows where blockchain started from. And you can't easily change it. We are Ghanaians. I have a friend, an older friend, who tells me that there are 2 things that you should never forget about Ghanaians. They will either lie or cheat, steal or both. Even if it is your wife or your husband, assume they will lie or they would steal. Put in place what it takes for them not to lie. Just like my brother Eric said earlier, that yes, and Steve Adair used to say that in Gimpa, in God we trust, every other person we monitor. Including me. I have to monitor my own self. I have to monitor my wife. I have to monitor my children. I trust my children. But I don't allow them to have closed doors. Teenagers, behind closed doors, they stay in their rooms alone. No. You never lock your door. You always have your door open, knowing that anybody can come in at any time. When you are ready to leave the house, you can go and lock your door when you rent a place and stay. But when you are in my house, in God we trust, everybody we monitor, so that we can use these systems to do that. Now, you're asking me, so where do we go? I've mentioned the emergency one. But in the long term, the question is, the people we want to come into the task net, do they have the technological knowledge and capacity and the willingness, if I don't want to talk about willingness, and the ability, to do it. So I think the issue of empowerment by education, by training, by whatever, should come. And some of these things should not start just when people are in universities. Yeah. Right from childhood. This Lampo thing my dear sister just mentioned, I was just asking myself, how can we inculcate the habit of paying taxes in children before they grow? Yeah, saying we are spoiled. So if you want, in the long run, to have a country that is properly built, we should be thinking, what should we put into younger people, such that by the time they grow, the habit of giving to society, not for your personal interest directly, but for all of us, the corporate, growth, should be formed. And I think the people in education should think about that seriously. Okay. And think about how to. If I don't cut you, the students will be angry at me because their lunch depends on when you finish your submission. So on this note, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the panel. I'm sure we could have gone on and on and on, but thank you so much. Please put your hands together as they assume their seats. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Great conversation. And just for the records, there were 2 women on the panel and 1 man, just in case you didn't notice. All right, so to the next conversation, public-private partnerships, strengthening the fight against tax revenue leakages. We have George K. from KPMG. It's Michael Boating. Michael Boating, okay, nice. Michael, please take the stage for us, thank you. From KPMG. Dr. Benjamin K. Akolache, Esquire, from GNPC. Dr. Charles Jemfi Ofori, Africa Center for Energy Policy, ASEP. Charles is young, but he's a doctor, just so you know. And to my former lecturer from ICAG, Dr. Hey, are you on the way?
Mr. Hassan Yusuf Traore. Your name sounds similar to the Ivory Coast. Or is it, are you relatives or something? Great, thank you so much. Now put your hands together for the panel, please. I saw GMPC on the stage, so I'm tempted to start with you. So we've spoken about public-private partnerships and strengthening the fight against tax revenue. From your experience at GMPC and as a government official, how crucial or strategic would you say having such partnership is to tackling revenue leakages?
Thank you, and good afternoon to everyone here, and good afternoon to everybody listening. Until recently, I was at GMPC, so if you look at my former GMPC staff, but I've been there so I can speak. I'm not speaking for GMPC, but I'm speaking from my own experience.
Your own experience, okay.
Very well, having worked with GMPC.
GMPC, yeah.
Yeah, if you look at what we've seen and the video that they showed on SML, you realize that technologically, the idea is okay. But in public service, we say that perception is everything. If people perceive corruption, that is it. You will have the most brilliant idea, but it will fail. Now, if you look at the records, we didn't have PPP Act, Public-Private Partnership Act, before 2020. The act was enacted in 2020, assented in December 2020. So from 2020 coming, before 2020, we had Public Financial Management Act, Public Administration Act, PPA, other acts that you need to put together in getting your ideas across. Procedure is everything. You need to seek board approval. At times, if the commitment is beyond a certain limit, you need to seek approval from Ministry of Finance. There are bits and pieces in the law scattered. So as a public servant, you need to know all these things. Now, public-private partnership. If you look at the SML issue, they came in before 2020 when the PPP Act was enacted. But looking at the PPP Act, it's about ensuring, promoting transparency, value for money, risk sharing. These are the key things. And if you look at the PPP Act, it has this, we take it to the board. The board has to approve it.